I would say money is attached to people. So like, you don't have to worry about the money. What you should be worried about is the connections that you're making with people, because people at the end of the day have to actually feel comfortable and trust you enough to say, I'd love to actually exchange, this resource for the value that you're going to, provide to me. I would say that the journey is the destination, because even when we reach whatever it is that we claim we're trying to reach, you just set a whole new goal again, and then you're back off to the races. Starting a business for me, the foundation of it has more to do with what's the problem that you're actually going to solve for somebody. You could have great ideas to do tons of things. I could have opened a laundromat and people need it, but is it the problem that I'm uniquely built to solve? Is it the thing that my voice calls out for?
Welcome to Begin, Build, Blossom Your Business Journey, the podcast where we share valuable insights, resources, and motivation to fuel your entrepreneurial spirit. Let's build a supportive community together. Don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to podcasts and be part of this journey. Let's pause for a moment to hear from our sponsors. You've built a name for yourself through hard work and dedication, but does managing the business side feel like a distraction from your true passion? Are you dealing with unmanaged finances? CME Accounting LLC is here to help. We specialize in organizing your financial records, allowing you to focus on what you do best. With organized books, you'll have more time for what inspires you, whether that's expanding your influence, building relationships, or simply enjoying life. Don't let unmanaged finances hold you back. Reach out to CME Accounting LLC today and let us help you thrive. Visit our website, www.cmeaccountingllc.com, or email us at admin@cmeaccountingllc.com. All right, let's jump back into our conversation. Good day and welcome to another episode of our podcast, Begin, Build, Blossom Your Business Journey. Today we have with us Randy Niles Smith, who is a multidisciplinary creator who blends soul, strategy, and storytelling to help founders build brands with real clarity and connection. For more than 20 years, he's been creating deep impact through music, mentorship, and creative direction. First as a touring singer-songwriter and guide for other artists, and now as the founder of Oathic, a brand clarity firm that turns confusion into confidence, alignment, and conversion. Along his journey, Randy saw a common pattern: talented people working hard, yet feeling unseen or misunderstood in their message. That insight fueled his mission to help entrepreneurs express who they truly are through their brands. His work has taken him into powerful spaces, including over 3 years leading brand and design at Greatness Media with Lewis House, supporting global rebrands, launching Greatness Coaching and Greatness Academy, and training members around the world about authentic, human-centered branding. Today, Randy helps purpose-driven founders cut through the noise and return to the core of their identity so their brand reflects their truth, not just their marketing. Welcome, Randy. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and thanks for saying yes to joining us on the podcast.
Definitely. Anytime.
Yes. And I just want to start by saying that we met at a networking event held locally. We happen to live in the same community. So it just shows how networking is great. I'm glad that I got to meet you and that you're joining us today.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's always amazing. Like you realize that there's so much around you, and a lot of times you really don't realize it if you're not, out and just participating in the things that happen in your spaces. So yeah, it was really nice just to be a part of that, and obviously to meet you and get to know you more, and now finally be a part of the podcast here.
Yes, I had a clarity call with you around the branding of this podcast. So it's nice to be able to just have that kind of communication and an in-depth perspective. So thanks for giving us that time as well. Myself and my co-host, Angela St. Dennis. Thanks for that time. We really enjoyed speaking with you.
Same here. Thank you.
All right. So let's go into the rapid fire. Let's start by asking you two words. One word that describes you now and one word you would have used to describe yourself as a child.
One word now. First thing that comes to mind is integrity. And first word that comes to my mind as a child, curious.
Nice. And when you say integrity, I just went directly to the name of your business. Usually we talk about that later, but it just kind of nicely ties in here. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit more about the name of your business, because integrity plays a big role in that.
It does. Yeah, definitely. So as you know, the name of the company is Oathic. And when I was trying to think of a name, it was named Smith and Sylvan before that. And in all honesty, it was just taking my last name and the name of the street that I lived on at the time, which was called Sylvan Avenue. And I don't know, it felt right at the time just to put those two combinations together. You can find meaning in anything in life, in all honesty. You know, we're, I always say, like, as human beings, I mean, we're alchemists. We have the ability to coin something as being whatever we want it to be. And then really you spend your time enrolling other people into believing in whatever that definition is that you coin for it. So for me, there were some things that had happened, some transitions that happened in my life during that time. And then it just felt like that was the right thing, putting these two together. And so I had that for a few years, but something always bothered me about it because I felt like I didn't really do the personal work myself to uncover the unique kind of name and energy that I wanted behind it. Like, what was the thing I wanted to represent what I was leading? And that name wasn't it. So I went back and I did the work I normally do for clients. I did it, to myself. And, it was maybe about like an 8-month process for me, just continually going over like what stuck with me. And the key things for me are ethics, integrity. I think I mentioned to you when we spoke, storytelling, all of these things were really, really important to me. And the first thing that came to my mind was an oak tree. I always like to relate to like everything in life like that. Like an oak tree, the first thing is establishing that the strong roots, it grows into this mighty big foundation. And then the branches begin to, grow out, which happens with everything in nature. But, I kept thinking oak and then something maybe with oak, and there could be some symbolism with the foundations and stuff. But long story short, I kept coming back to ethics and integrity. And I'm like, what's the word? And I was like, well, oath, a solemn promise, but I said, that's pretty common. And then I started looking it up, and, there were other companies with oath, like their names, oath.com or oath.net. And I don't know how this actually came about, but the last part, the suffix "ic," just kind of popped up. And I kept saying it, Oathic. And I was like, it sounds weird. but it's weird enough that it would make people question, what is that? Like what? And when I actually started doing the research, because I'm really big into doing research on things, I don't like just throwing things out. I did the research on it and started to find what the pure definition to the word oath is, and then what the definition to that suffix "ic" is. And you have solemn oath, and the suffix "ic" ties back to like spirituality, nature, a sense of calm and ease. And I was like, wow, these two things actually are what I'm about. And so I just put it together, and then I started working on some things around it, like identity-wise, playing around with what it would look like. And after I finished working on it and sat with it for about a week, I said, this is it.
Nice.
This is definitely it. Yeah. So.
Well, you definitely put some work into that. Nice.
Yeah. You definitely have to. And I was glad that I did. Like I said, the first time around was just sort of like, I wanted to get something out. But as time went on, it didn't sit very well with me. It was very uncomfortable for me. I think even to the point that like I didn't promote it as much as I think I would have wanted to, just simply because there just wasn't this sense of confidence behind it. Not to say that I didn't work with clients and I didn't seek out, but it's like every time I spoke about the business, it was almost like I wanted to leave the name out and not say, it's like, I run a brand studio, but I would never really want to mention the name it just didn't feel as powerful and as strong. But Oathic is something that I'm very proud of. I'm happy to, just shout it out,
Yeah.
to everyone. So
I'm glad you got to that point. And then when I hear Oathic, I'm also thinking ethic and all those. All right. Thanks for sharing that with us. So, is there a favorite childhood memory that comes to mind?
I don't think there's anything like one specific thing. The one thing I can say is just my time growing up with my brother. I have an older brother who's a special needs individual, and he didn't speak; he was mute growing up, so he could never verbalize himself. He can't really advocate for himself. He can't tell you if he's hurting or in pain or anything like that. So growing up, like I had to become the big brother, and he was more like my little brother, and so my memories are just continual with just always being with him. Our mother worked 2 jobs. She worked a day and a night job. So like I had to grow up really quickly and I was around him all the time and I had to look after him and take care of him and things like that. So again, my memories are always like we were always attached at the hip. So it's like every memory is always, it has to include him, in that process with it. But they were always very pleasant memories. Even though he's the way that he is. And I think it ties into, and it'll probably come up, later in a question where it's like this whole peaceful vibe about me and everything like that. So if I would say anything, it would just be this continual sense of peace that I had when I was around him and just being home with him and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Oh, thanks for sharing that with us. So, if you can think of one highlight of your time in business, let me rephrase this: a highest high in business, what would that be for you?
I mean, I've worked with a number of people where, again, like it's the reveal process, like when you're done with everything and the emotion that you receive at the end of it. There was one particular project that I worked on. It was a husband and wife, and they run a company that's based around sports training. So they train young individuals into becoming not just great athletes, but also great leaders in their life. Because we know not everybody is going to make it into, specifically they train in baseball, softball, and things like that. So, getting into major leagues and all of that. But the important factor that we uncovered was that they're training future leaders of tomorrow, everything that they're doing. But the process that we went through, and once we got to the end, I just remembered the emotional expression when everything was revealed to them, the identity and just like the whole story that was put together. And like they were both in tears. And that was something that really stuck with me just simply because like that's what I look for, like that emotional investment. Like, like you've done a really great job with people when they're willing to express that level of transparency with you. Like it felt like we were just on this journey for it. We worked together for several months because when we started, the wife was pregnant and then they had their son. So we put things on pause for a bit until they got, settled with that. And then we came back to the table. And I mean, like, you feel like you're a part of their story, right? Like their whole journey as well too. So that sticks out for me. That was actually last year that we had finished that project, and it's always a really great memory that always
that
comes
sounds
to
like
mind.
that sounds like a very good feeling. And can you think of maybe an opposite and maybe not one of the not so good moments for you in business so far?
Opposite end. I could definitely go back to when I initially was really starting out. Before I was, because I was always touring and everything with music, I would be doing this type of work, freelance, just on the side. And then when I decided that I wanted to actually build some sort of, a vessel, a foundation around it, the first few clients that I worked with and had nothing to do with them, it's always a reflection of myself. So I never look on the outside and say, oh, because this person was doing this or acting this way or whatever it may be. And you tend to get that a lot where people will blame the clients service providers will blame the clients for the experience that they're having. And equally, everybody has a level of participation. But for myself, I was working with a particular client that I felt like wasn't really respecting certain boundaries. And I wasn't getting paid what I knew that I should have gotten paid for the project, but I accepted it. And that was me. And what should have taken 3 weeks took 3 months. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't the most pleasant, thing, because it became a very demanding type of, it turned from me being the expert to them. I always think of it like like you go to a diner, and nothing against diners, but you go to a diner and you have a waiter that gives you a menu with a lot of stuff on it. And they basically say, here you go. And then they leave. And they wait for you to pick whatever whatever you're going to eat. You go to a fine dining restaurant and the waiter comes to you and they'll suggest to you what you should have for the night. What's the freshest thing, and whatever it may be. So I felt like I was the waiter in a diner, and someone else was kind of pulling the strings and telling me, like what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And even when we got it complete, they wanted it redone, not because I did anything wrong, but because they were listening to what their family and friends were telling them. And it's just, they weren't confident in their own vision. And so they weren't able to hold it. And it went in all these different directions. And I, like, in all honesty, that was the situation that actually like had the light switch go off for me literally overnight. Like overnight, I overhauled everything that I was doing, changed my pricing. And I just said, I'm not going to turn around and go back. I just didn't want to go through that experience anymore from there. So, yeah.
Okay. I feel like that tells me a little bit about why people would come to you as well. One way of saying that is like your first client, like you actually went through it yourself, and now you're delivering what you actually learned on that journey, and you're helping other people to come to that as well. So thanks for showing us that. That's what I got from listening to you anyway.
No, definitely. Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head with that one. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. So do you remember when was the first time you actually thought of actually starting a business?
Yeah, I was very young. Yeah, I did. The very first thing I remember doing was, I want to say I was in the 4th grade. And I had this idea of, because I'm an illustrator by nature, I've been drawing since I was 2 years old. And I thought that was going to be the path that I was going to go down, like become, some illustrator. I was into architecture as well too. But in the 4th grade, during the summer, like just as we were getting out for summer break, I had this idea of doing cartoon characters on like my classmates, like their jeans, like the jean jackets and like the actual, like their pants, like the jeans, doing cartoon characters, with the markers and things like that. And so doing it for 25 cents. I remember that. I remember that vividly.
Good for you that you actually got money for it.
Yeah, I didn't make that much from it. It didn't last that long. It didn't last that long, but it's funny because I had the idea and I thought it was a great idea, and I pitched it to classmates, and I wouldn't have known it then, but looking back now, it was a great example of not knowing my market. I never asked any of my classmates beforehand, would this be something they would actually like and be interested in? I just started doing it and then brought it to them and said, hey, like I can do this on your jacket and I can do that. And a lot of them didn't care for it. So yeah, I probably made a total of $1 or something from that.
But look at where you are now. You have a whole business. So that was the beginnings of that. So once you decided to start the business that you have now, what were the steps that you took to get from, ideation to now actually having a business? And when I ask that, I'm thinking of people who are probably looking to start their own businesses and what they can learn from what you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, like business has always been, it's always been something that's a part of the foundation of all things that I was doing. And so like when I was younger, I wouldn't have known it to be described as business. It just seemed like it made sense to focus more on how do things work over like how talented or gifted or, people have different words for it. But when I got into music, for me, doing anything creative and artistic for me, it's no different than just getting up out of bed and breathing. So in my mind, I thought I don't have to focus on that. Like, of course, I practice and I do all the things I do, but that comes naturally. But in my mind, I'm like, I want to focus on what seemingly doesn't come naturally, which is how do you get your stuff out there? How do you get people to listen? How do you book shows? How do you do all those things? Because no one's really teaching you that. And so I focused on like reading a lot of books and just paying attention to what I saw, happening around me. So my journey with like branding and stuff really took place while I was in music because I needed to use those skills for myself to build my career. So everything from like creating my own merch, making my own tour posters, building my own websites, like I taught myself all these different things because they were going to be the things that I needed for myself. And then it later started to become things that I could share with other creatives and artists that were also doing similar things to me. And all I wanted to do was help everybody else get there because they didn't have that information. That's not what they were focused on. When you're especially creatives, you're typically focused on, I just want to be creative. They say, I don't want the structure and all, I don't want to lose my artistic, and you realize actually putting these things in place helps you to be more creative because you have the flexibility and room now to move around and do what you do. So my process began there. And then when I started Oathic, it was just really just taking everything that I had been doing and bringing it into what I do here. But the biggest thing that I will say is starting a business for me, the foundation of it has more to do with what's the problem that you're actually going to solve for somebody. You can have great ideas to do tons of things. I could have opened a laundromat. I don't know, but, and people need it, but is it the problem that I'm uniquely built to solve? Is it the thing that my voice calls out for? And for me, the biggest thing that I kept seeing, whether it was in music or just some other industry of work, was that you have a lot of people who are really out here trying to do great things for people, the planet, the environment around them. And they're just not getting heard because they're being buried by everything else. And so getting their message out, like that was a really important thing for me, as a singer-songwriter. I'm writing songs and they have to be done in less than 3 minutes. Like you have to tell a story and capture people's attention in less than 3 minutes. And it's like, how do you do that? But how do you get heard over everybody else who's doing the same things? And that's what I pay very close attention to. There's a lot of people doing exactly what you do, but not everyone is actually, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but not everyone is doing it from a place of integrity. Some people are doing it because it makes money, seemingly, and they need to make money. Some people are doing it because it gives them some level of notoriety or, whatever it may be. But I really believe that when you're in service to others and you're keeping that at the forefront, like that's the beginning of your business right there. And then everything else, kind of follows suit. All of the traditional things you do, like getting it set up, and LLCs, and just doing all the formal things, but having a very clear understanding of why you're doing it in the first place. And then, if you can, working with people who can support you, along that way. I asked a lot of questions. I said, I'm curious. So I'm the one that, I'm always asking questions and I'm trying to figure out how things work and I'm studying things. And I have lots of other friends that are entrepreneurs and, so I ask them questions and, we just go back and forth, things like that. But yeah, I would say like for me, at least starting the business started with why is it that I want to actually start a business? What's the purpose of it? And it can't, for me, it couldn't be like, I want to make lots of money and stuff like that. Like for me, that's a default. Those things will come and build. I would say money is attached to people. So like, you don't have to worry about the money. What you should be worried about is the connections that you're making with people, because people at the end of the day have to actually feel comfortable and trust you enough to say, I'd love to actually exchange, this resource for the value that you're going to, provide to me.
Let's pause for a moment to hear from our sponsors. You've built a name for yourself through hard work and dedication. But does managing the business side feel like a distraction from your true passion? Are you dealing with unmanaged finances? CME Accounting LLC is here to help. We specialize in organizing your financial records, allowing you to focus on what you do best. With organized books, you'll have more time for what inspires you. Whether that's expanding your influence, building relationships, or simply enjoying life. Don't let unmanaged finances hold you back. Reach out to CME Accounting LLC today and let us help you thrive. Visit our website, www.cmeaccountingllc.com, or email us at admin@cmeaccountingllc.com. All right, let's jump back into our conversation. And I like how you mentioned about as a musician, because you were a musician first. I'm not sure if you're still a musician.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so that was your focus first, and then you had to do all of that. You learned a lot, and now you giving back that way. So yes, the goal is always to make money, but the fact that you're making an impact and you're able to help people, way that you would probably have liked to be helped back then when you were getting started.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just listening to you, and I feel like I'm hearing a lot of I don't know you very well, but just the way you speak, it's like I can hear a lot of your personality coming through. Like if I were to guess who you were. So, and especially when you mention things like integrity, it seems like you're very focused on that, and that's a big value for you. So yeah, I like that. Okay. And in building your business, I know that, getting started is a big step. But what would you say is the next big thing that you've done on your journey, apart from just starting the business, like a big leap that you've taken?
Big leap that I've taken? I would definitely say my time working with Lewis and the Greatness team. That was a big, so my business, I had started my business maybe just about 2.5 years, like formally 2.5 years before I had actually decided to join on and take on the role of manager of branding and design for the company. And it was a tough decision for me because I kept questioning whether or not, not that I was going to walk away, but obviously I would kind of like slow down what I was doing with my personal stuff to then, in a sense, kind of come back into like a corporate setting. Even though it's built around, personal brand and it's the podcast space and things like that. But when I sat with it and I thought about it, I looked at it as an opportunity to step into leadership and an opportunity to learn more about like who I am and like what more could I, possibly provide to others out there. And it's to the same environment of people, it's self-development and, and things like that. So I felt like it wouldn't be me giving anything up. It would just be me expanding into something that could help me to amplify not only like what I do, but also what others were, trying to do. So that was really big for me because the leadership thing I mentioned, I learned so much from the individuals that I was working with there. There were a lot of realization moments from myself personally, like how I had been leading things up to that point in my personal business. And I think my vision expanded even more after being, I think initially, like you kind of think of it as, yeah, like I have this business, I'll take on clients and yeah, we'll just keep doing that. And as time went on, I started to look at it as this could actually go much bigger than what you are seeing because I'm seeing somebody else's vision go from just being, started out in his kitchen, recording at his kitchen table, his podcast, and then growing it to a global podcast now, that touches millions of lives and stuff like that. And, not that my focus was, in growing a podcast, but it's, business is business and it starts with the person who has that vision. And you realize like being a part of that team, it was made up of a group of individuals that all had visions for something more for themselves. And we were all growing together through that process. So I think that really helped in just developing even more possibilities and more vision for myself Yeah. And then I left last year, um, and coming out of that and then back into like what I do full time. I was still doing like my own business, but, taking on less clients, obviously, because I was there at a full time capacity. But then coming back, it almost felt like you were just like supercharged and you had all of these like new ideas, and it just felt more refreshing to come back into it at that point in time at full capacity. So yeah.
I like that perspective. I don't know if that would be considered a pivot, maybe in terms of like who you serve instead of many. You had that one main client and it was full time. But I like how you say that experience actually enriched your journey. Like you learned from that and you came back into now your full-time journey again with a lot of things that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
So that little curve in the road was actually a good one.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's really, you brought a lot back with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like for me, I feel like that's important. I related to that because sometimes we run in the business and we feel like, okay, if we now need to go get a full-time job for whatever reason, it could be just, it's a great opportunity, or it could be we need the extra income. Sometimes the way we look at that is not always in a positive light. So to see that you actually were able to do that and actually it made you even a better entrepreneur. It's good to see that. So thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, no, thank you for that reflection, because I truly believe in that. I never look at anything in life as this has nothing to do with like my life and what I'm doing. I think no matter what you're doing in life, as I said, I think, in the beginning, like, you can find meaning in anything if you wanted to. And we really do have the power to, again, transform things into what we desire to transform it into. So, I remember jobs I worked where I was just, before like actually doing the design business stuff. And this is like when I was, more focused in the music, and I was working corporate jobs and jobs on the weekends and things like that. And I did so many different things. But the interesting thing is that every job had me in a position where I was always face to face with the customer, with people. A lot of times I wanted to be in the background. I thought that I didn't want to be, it's just too much, to deal with people and be upfront and, day after day after day after day. But then you realize, like, you're actually being called up. You're actually being placed in a position, again, of leadership. And there's just a lot of things that you can learn, and you can bring those skills into, everything else that you're doing. It's not just, you have to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again in order to become better at whatever it is that you're doing. I really think that having that diverse background in so many different things, and just having a positive mindset and perspective on what you're doing. I mean, the alternative is just to be miserable, and that just doesn't make it any more comfortable. So you might as well find something in it that you can.
Yeah, and when you said positive mindset, it's like that's exactly what I was thinking. Just the way you look at things, that's very, very positive, and I think that's really the best way to go through life. So yeah, all right. So let's look at let's see. Do you have a team that you work with at all right now, or are you solo?
I have a few individuals that I do work with. So I have two individuals that support me more like on the administrative side. And then I have two individuals that from time to time, like if I need to bring them on to support on, on some projects, I would bring them on. Most all the time though, like I'm working one-on-one with the clients. Yeah, and working through those projects.
Okay, and we did mention that we met at a networking event. I'm just wondering, what does, outside of that event, what does networking look like for you generally?
Outside of that, I mean, obviously we're all on social, so that's definitely one avenue. Connecting with a lot of individuals on there. I've been meeting a lot of individuals lately on LinkedIn, and using those opportunities to, again, like really like tap in and get to know people. jump on, calls, Zoom calls to really like get a better feel, for each other and see like how we could all support each other because we're all doing a lot of the same things in terms of just we're in the same spaces and places and we're all growing. And I think that's like, it's such an important thing to just connect with people at the end of the day. Like you'd never know like where those things are going to lead, and not doing it from a place of like, what can I get from them? What are they going to, but again, curiosity, that's the thing that always comes up for me. Even like with music, for me, my favorite part was not necessarily being on stage and doing what I do. It was what would happen when you get off stage. The conversations would begin now. I could meet people now one-on-one, sit down and we have conversations. People would, invite me to stay at their places if I didn't have a place to stay while I'm on the road. And when you're doing this over a number of years, it would start out with we're strangers and I don't know you, to you're inviting me to your kid's graduation. A few years later, I'm breaking bread with you in your home. Like those are the things that I really enjoyed because the way that I see it is the more that I get to meet people and connect with them, the more that I learn about myself because I'm getting it reflected back from a separate lens. It's not just me walking around saying, I'm this type of person, I'm that. I have other people who are giving me feedback in real time, telling me like what they're experiencing from me. And, I find that to be, like really, really, really important. So any ways that you can connect with people, even as of recently, since going to those networking events, I started going last year. I started making more of an effort to actually like get out into the community and like go visit some of the local businesses and start talking to, some of those individuals. I can, unfortunately, I mean, it's sad to say, but like for a number of years, I've lived here for a good while. I didn't really do that. A lot of my focus was outside of this community, not purposely, but because, especially with music, I was always away, traveling. Most all of, my work in business would be in the city, places like Brooklyn, things like that, where there's just a lot of this activity that's going on. So a lot of the people that I would meet would be from those areas. And then a lot of the connections that I would make would be through them. So a lot of like referrals and stuff through those individuals that I made connections with. So until I started really going to these networking events here in the local community and, meeting great individuals like yourself and so many other people, it just started to become a natural thing to start doing now and connecting with people, here locally more so.
Nice. I love that. And when you mentioned, doing more things locally, I think I don't know. I like the sound of that because that's something I'm trying to do more of as well. Because sometimes it's work or whatever that usually takes you out of your community. But to be able to just kind of focus on the community and say, let me get to know those business owners better. Let me see how I can make an impact. That's something that has been a bit of a focus for me right now. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And what does success mean to you, Randy?
Success for me, freedom. That's the first word that comes to mind. Freedom. Yeah, just the ability and flexibility to, it's not just about, people think like places like physical, like, oh, you can travel and you can go, all of those things, but just like, even just freedom of mindset, like, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to focus so much on what you don't have to focus so much on. Like you can just like kind of like relax everything about yourself. And I truly believe it begins in your mind, so I mean, just like freedom and just knowing that you're doing all the best things that you could possibly do, serving at the highest capacity that you could serve. And I don't know if you've ever heard the term, but flow state. You hear it a lot in creative spaces, like an artist who just starts to draw or paint, and they can go for hours and they completely lose track of time. And it's like 10 hours later, that's how I get with music. And honestly, all the work that I do, I could go for long periods of time without realizing that time has passed. And, so it's called being in your flow state. Like you're just tapped in and really focused. And that for me is like the closest to like what I'm expressing, the freedom of just not having to be concerned with anything that's going on outside of you because you know that you've done and showed up in all the best ways possible. Yeah. So freedom is my word.
Nice. And I don't know, the calm just comes through even when you just said freedom, you said that so calmly. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Freedom. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. And are there 3 tips that you'd like to share for entrepreneurs or people wanting to be entrepreneurs listening to you right now?
3 tips. I think the first thing that comes to mind is, I know people say this all the time and it sounds really cliche, the whole like be yourself. But in all honesty, truly, like be yourself. Like you're scratching your own itch. And so you mentioned several times where, it's like, it sounds like, like you're solving your own problem. And that really is what it is. You're going out into the world and you're seeking more versions of you, from years past, those who are going through the exact same thing that you're going through. And so like owning you, your space, your voice, like be authentically you. And even when they say authentic, that could be very elusive, so the next word that comes behind that for me is consistent. Like whoever you've consistently been, be that, because that's what the world actually really needs more of, not carbon clones, other people or, other things that you have going on around you. The second thing that I would offer in that would be understand your why. Again, it's the integrity thing. Why are you really doing, or why do you want to do the thing that you're doing? And that kind of repositions itself to what's the thing that you're trying to solve, for others, which goes back to the very first thing. What's the thing that you solve for yourself? I think one of the easiest things is when you go to bed at night, like what's the thing that you think about, or what's the thing that keeps you up, constantly, so staying true to yourself, your voice, just who you are, understanding and truly knowing your why, what's the reason for why you get up every day, why you're doing the things that you're doing. And I think the last thing I would say, it just popped up in my head really quickly, is have grace for yourself. I think a lot of us put a lot of pressure on ourselves to perform in so many different ways because, especially now, you have so much access to seeing everything that's going on around you. And, in some respects, it looks really glamorous, but you really don't know the journey that somebody else had been on and how long they've been on that journey. You don't know if what they're actually putting out is actually truth. And you don't actually need to know it. Like, you really just need to focus on yourself at the end of the day, but having more grace for yourself through this process, because there's a lot, to it. It's a journey. There is no, I say that the journey is the destination, because even when we reach whatever it is that we claim we're trying to reach, you just set a whole new goal again. And then you're back off to the races and you're doing the hustle and the grinding and, and everything. So yeah, have grace with yourself,
I love that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. Can you just let us know, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, definitely. I'm on, so we're on Instagram at We Are Oathic. It's spelled exactly as it sounds. We are, and then Oathic, Oathic. The website is oathic.com. It's pretty, it's pretty simple. I was happy about that. And, yeah, I mean, those are, pretty much the Instagram is like our primary, place on there. I'm on LinkedIn as well too. And it's under my name, Randy Niles Smith. So yeah, you can find me on there. But
all right. Well, I'll be sure to add that to the show notes. Our listeners can look out for that there. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and for sharing so much with us about your journey.
Yeah, thank you.
Talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
A quick note before we wrap up. The insights and experiences shared by our guests are their own. We love creating space for real conversations about business and growth, and everyone's journey is unique. Therefore, this podcast is for informational and inspirational purposes only. It is not meant to replace legal, financial, or other professional advice. So, we encourage you to take what's useful, do your own due diligence, and build what works best for you.
Thanks for listening to Begin, Build, Blossom Your Business Journey. We hope today's conversation gave you the insights and inspiration you need to move forward on your own path. Don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast so you never miss an episode. Do you have feedback? We'd love to hear from you at podcast@cmeaccountingllc.com. Join us again next week for a new episode.